good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV back at you another video. At the content of this video, go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go ahead and subscribe, man. Look, so kind of want to talk about some notable deals from day one. Where do the Ravens stand after day one of free agency? Now, day one of free agency is still ongoing, but I feel like now is a good time to kind of talk about some notable deals, things like that. Just kind of give my perspective of what's going on so far in free agency, right? Ravens related or whatnot. All right. Now, first thing, a lot of big money deals being passed around in free agency, right? So when I look at some of the deals for some of the guys that hell I was even interested in from a Ravens perspective, right? I see um Josh Palmer, $36 million for the Bills. Now, if you guys watched, if anybody here, watching this video, watched the previous video that I did the Ravens free agency preview. Josh Palmer was one of the guys I mentioned as a nice wide receiver three coming for the Ravens and be a good player. I didn't think it would cost him that much money. I was wrong, right? Josh Palmer gets $12 million a year. I believe $18 million guaranteed, right? So that's way more than what I thought, and that kind of tells me that the free agent market is going to be a lot more expensive than previously thought, right? But that happens, right? The cap's going up, things like that. And then when I think about it, right, the Rams, the Rams kept their guy Tutu Atwell, and they paid him $10 million, right? If y'all familiar with Tutu Atwell, he's like the definition of an okay wide receiver, right? Maybe a little bit below okay, right? So if Josh Palmer, who I believe is a better player than Tutu Atwell is, then yeah, he should probably be getting more money than Tutu Atwell, right? So that's just the kind of where the free agency market is, right? So that kind of puts it to perspective, like, dang, I don't know really what the Ravens are going to do so much in free agency, right? So that's just kind of one deal that kind of caught my eye. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things out there. I mean, Hassan Reddick gets $14 million from the Bucks. He didn't even play last season. Um, Chris Godwin goes back to the Buccaneers. It's a lot of deals in here. Oh man, Sam Darnold, $110 million to play for the Seattle Seahawks, right? Big money contract, right? So obviously the Ravens have no interest in quarterbacks. We got our guy, but on that front, Josh Allen gets the highest quarterback contract in history. The Bills gave him an extension, right? That could be a look into the future of what the Ravens are going to have to do for Lamar Jackson. I mean, really just to get his cap number lower, and obviously pay the guy who's played at a top two level at minimum, if not been the best quarterback in the NFL the last couple of years, right? So um, that's interesting to me, And then we want to talk about some Ravens guys, right? Some Ravens guys that went outside of the Ravens house and got paid. Okay, let's start with Brandon Stevens. Brandon Stevens go ahead and signs for the Jets, 3 years, $36 million, $23 million guaranteed, right? I read an article from ESPN Plus, ESPN Insider. This was last week, right? Right after the combine ended, that Brandon Stevens was going to have a good market, right? People appreciated what Brandon Stevens did. Now, as Ravens fans, we know that he's very, very frustrated, right? I made the comment before that Brandon Stevens is 95% of what you want in the corner, right? He's physical, he can press, he can play a little bit of off, he's good in man coverage, right? He does not find the football, and we know that's a major flaw, right? If you could do everything right but can't make a play on the ball, you're not doing your entire job as a cornerback. Right? Simple as that. All right. So that was Brandon Stevens' major drawback. That's the reason that he's not going to be a Baltimore Raven next year. He's going to be a New York Jet. But Aaron Glenn likes, if you look at how the play style of the Detroit Lions were, they were physical corners in your face. Brandon Stevens can play that style, right? So, Brandon Stevens may have a good year for the Jets, right? Playing underneath Aaron Glenn, right? I really wouldn't doubt it, right? But him coming back to Baltimore just definitely wasn't a thing that was going to happen, right? Then honestly, Patrick McCurry, right? Patrick McCurry gets a deal from the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3 years, I believe I believe it's about $37 million, $37.5 million from the Jags. I think 20 million guaranteed, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, right? For me, I love this story with Patrick McCurry, right? Not really so much for the football stuff. The Ravens needed to move on. He didn't need to come back. Um, you know, it was the right decision not to pay him back, not to bring him back. And then if the Ravens were trying to compete with that kind of price tag, it was definitely a hell no. So I'm happy for him. But just on a personal story, right, for Patrick McCurry, I mean, this is a guy that was undrafted in 2019. All right. The Ravens pay him his first major contract. He makes his total in his career makes $17 million from the Ravens. And now with this new contract, with the guarantees and things like that, he's going to probably make over 40 million, over $45 million in his career, maybe more if he gets the entire contract, right? Which he probably won't. Most of these NFL guys, though, they don't get their entire contract. But at the end of the day, he's going to make probably 40 plus $1 million in his NFL career. And this is a guy that was coming undrafted, right? So to me, that's a success story. I love hearing that about Patrick McCurry, right? To me, that's dope, right? Like I said, that's not Ravens related or anything like that. The Ravens made the right decision. There was no reason to bring Patrick McCurry back, especially if his market was going to be like this. There was no reason to bring him back, right? But just for him, like that's a good for him. Like I'm happy that he got paid that kind of contract, right? Um, yeah. So some other noticeable deals. I mean, Laramie Tunsil gets traded to the Commanders, right? The Texans move off of their former All Pro, former Pro Bowl left tackle Lance Zerline, who's kind of in the know for the Houston Texans, said there was some culture issues there for Laramie Tunsil. That's why the Texans feel comfortable moving on from him, right? So okay, cool, right? Another guy that I mentioned that in the Ravens preview was DJ Reed, right? Cornerback from the formerly of the New York Jets, right? New York Jets obviously replaced him already, but formerly the New York Jets, he goes to the Lions. $48 million from the $48 million deal from the Lions. Um, Once again, the Ravens probably weren't going to pay that kind of deal, right? So if we want to talk about now Ravens focused and even AFC North focused, right? The division is stacking up, right? I didn't get a chance to talk about DK Metcalf, but we can do that here, right? So the Steelers go out and they trade for DK Metcalf yesterday, give up a second round pick, and then they pay DK Metcalf 5 years, $150 million on top of that, right? DK Metcalf, his list came out. I want to play for a contender. I want to be in warm weather. Steelers don't really fit either criteria, if we're being completely honest. But $150 million, that'll keep him warm at night. He'll be okay with that, right? Uh, but for the Ravens, I see some fans on Twitter panicking. Oh, what's going to happen? First of all, the Steelers don't have a quarterback, right? One, that's off top. They don't have a quarterback. They might sign Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was okay last year. He was better than probably most people say he was. But that still doesn't mean he was good. Okay. Secondly, him and George Pickens, I don't see it as a fit, right? Because now I'm even saying today that they could trade George Pickens, right? To me, if I was the Steelers, I understand that because you want to get something for him. Because in my mind, I was like, this is definitely the last year of George Pickens on the Steelers, right? I thought they might let him play out the deal or whatever, but it makes sense to get some type of draft capital back for a young player. Because there's no way that you're going to pay DK Metcalf 5 years, $150 million, and then turn around and pay George Pickens, who's coming up in the last year of his contract as well. There's no way you're going to pay both guys two head case wide receivers, right? There's no way you're going to do that, and they're not. So we'll see if he gets traded or not. But that's something that look out for. But the Steelers got better, right? DK Metcalf is probably a better version of what George Pickens is. Okay, um, George Pickens is probably better at the jump ball, but DK Metcalf is a better wide receiver. You feel me? So they still need a quarterback. The Ravens are still far ahead in the division, if you ask me, for all the teams. Myles Garrett, who I was hoping was leaving the division, is back in the division, right? Well, not I guess I can't say back. He never left, but is staying in the division. You know, it was talks about him. I want to play for a contender. I don't want to be here, this and that. Hey, the Browns throw $123 million guaranteed in his face. Cleveland ain't so bad. I think I could work it out here, right? And I don't get on any athlete for doing that because that's the right thing to do. If you're gonna play this game, a game that's gonna take so much from you physically, be a legend at the bank, right? Make that money on the back end. So definitely not taking anything away from Myles Garrett there. So the AFC North to me is still going to be the best, most competitive division in football, right? Just because of these teams, they never really. I mean, the Browns go on and off, but like you throw the Bengals in there, you got the Steelers in there. They never really go into full rebuilds. It's always pretty much competitive, right? Then with the Ravens, they're going to be pretty competitive as well. All right, so after after day one, like I said, day one is still going on. Somebody probably just got signed while I'm recording this video. But I think the Ravens are in a fine spot, right? The Ravens' big thing that they needed to do was retain Ronnie Stanley. And they retained Ronnie Stanley. That was the huge thing the Ravens need to do. And they did that, right? So, not saying that they're completely done for agency, not saying that there aren't more moves to make. Of course, there are. But the major thing the Ravens need to do was they needed to shore up the offensive line, um, especially the tackle spots, right? They did that resigning Ronnie Stanley. So, I'm cool with it. We'll see what else is to come. But I did also want to say that, I think that the Jair Alexander thing, who was kind of, if I'm being honest, Jair Alexander is probably my number one target for the Ravens this offseason. Okay. He's probably my number one target. All right. I just think that what he can provide for the Ravens and the deal that they can get him on is going to be favorable. I really do. I think he is going to end up. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what his trade market looks like. He could be getting traded, but I think the Packers are going to end up cutting him. And I just feel like that's a move that the Ravens can make, and it's going to be reasonable, right? Just because you throw in factors like injury history and kind of wanting to prove himself that he is still one of those top cornerbacks in the league, right? Now with free agency, the money thrown around is a lot. It's crazy. It's guys that you didn't think we get that kind of money. It's getting crazy money right there. I didn't even talk about Milton Williams, right? Milton Williams was first on the Panthers. That deal kind of fell through because he was still negotiating. Then he went to the Patriots, and the Patriots gave him $26 million a year, right? Milton Williams is a good player, but $26 million a year is a lot of money, right? So when you go into free agency, it's all gambles. You never really know what's going to happen there, right? So for the Ravens, they're in a good spot. They honestly are. They're in a fine spot in free agency so far. The Ravens were never ever going to make a move day one. Hell, the Ravens might not make a move week one of free agency, right? We know how this goes, right? And just looking at the money that's being thrown out there for the caliber of player that's out there, I can say I'm kind of happy that the Ravens aren't participating in this, right? The caliber of the player that's out there matched with the money, it doesn't really align, right? A lot of these guys aren't $12 million players, $20 million players, $25 million players, right? To me, there's a lot of overpaying going on, but that's what you have to do when you play in free agency, right? You overpay. That's what happens. That's the truth of it, right? Because all pro players aren't going to come available, at least in their prime, in free agency. You may be able to get that guy via trade, but in free agency, you're looking at guys that are Pro Bowl level, maybe and below, right? So that's kind of what you're looking at, right? So for the Ravens, I think they're in a fine spot. We'll see what happens as the week goes on, how they progress, but definitely give me your thoughts on day one of free agency as a whole. Give me your thoughts about the Ravens. Are you disappointed, or are you, as I am, this went exactly how I thought it would go for the Ravens, right? A lot of teams will shell a lot of money, and the Ravens will just kind of be sitting back seeing what happens, and they'll probably pick up in week 2, week 3 of free agency and go from there, right? But anyway, I'm gonna get out of here, man. Obviously, give me your thoughts in the comments, man. But it's Gary Roots on Fan TV. I'm out.